Hello, welcome to TechWebDots. So in this session, I will discuss what Docker is, and this is part of the Docker for Beginner series. So I strongly recommend you to watch the previous video if you haven't watched. Okay, so to understand better what Docker is, so I believe the best way to learn about container is to first see it in action. Okay, and to see in it action, so only few things we need to consider. The very easiest way to start Docker is you just need to install the Docker desktop application, which is very easy, super simple, that I will explain in the upcoming session as well. But let me show you how Docker desktop looks like. After installation of Docker Desktop, once you launch your Docker Desktop very first time, you probably see this screen, or you will see a screen for logged in. And if you skip that part, then you will come to on this screen. Okay, and on this screen it contains many useful information that will really help you to get started with Dockers. Okay, so one of the step is, if you see what is a container, and it is also showing the another next tutorial, the smallest one, how do I run a container. And if I click on what is a container, so on the right hand side you will see it is coming from the learning center directly from the Docker, right? And actually it is setting up your guide. What do we mean by setting up? It means it is creating a project for you. See, creating a project, simple project for you to explore what Docker Desktop can do. So behind the scene, it is extracting one image for you so you can easily run your very first Docker image, right? So you can see downloaded new version of Docker Desktop. Welcome to Docker latest version. Okay, so this is what it does here. We see with this help of a small notification section, right? And there are multiple other self-guided steps that we can follow here. Containers on Docker Desktop that we have seen. If you click on next, it will show you view the front end. It means if you click on this port, we will be able to run this application. If you click on next, you will see explore your container option that we will discuss in some time after a few seconds. In the next session, it is also tell you how you can stop your container, right? And in the next section, it is saying how do I run a container, and in that we are saying from node resource, from node image, we wanted to run, creating a directory, and then moving to work directory, and then copy package and next. And so much of learning center resources are available for you at handy step. Okay, so let me close this one. So the moment you logged in, you will see multiple option, and how you can log in, you can just simply click on sign in here. Okay, see a pop-up option for you to sign in, right? It is taking few moments to pop up the screen. Okay, here we go, it is coming for me. I have provided my credentials, my username, email ID and password, and now it is asking for me to proceed for Docker Desktop. The moment I click on this one, I will navigate to desktop application. Now a notification says I have logged in with my email ID. You can see here, if I click on user, I have logged in as a TechWebDots, right? And I can see this image, and we will explore all these left hand side options. You can see under container section only one entry is here, which is this. The name is welcome to Docker. This is my container ID, and this is the image name that I am using, Docker welcome to Docker. And this is the port. This is CPU utilization. As you can see, currently it is NA because our container is not running as of now, and you can see the last started 50 minutes ago. Okay, the one thing I can do from here is I can just start this container, how it looks like, but this is the overall environment. Let me first run it for you. Okay, if I click on start, it will take few seconds and then it will be starting. You can see this image says your Docker container is running or not. Okay, so you will see this screen after installing the Docker Desktop on your machine, and you can easily log in and see your data if something you have previously pushed to the Docker account or Docker Hub account. Okay, to access the application, you just need to click here, ports. Okay, I click on this link and you can see the browser window is open and I can see it is saying congratulations, you ran your first container. So my application is working perfectly fine. Let me go back to the Docker desktop. So here in this image, what other things that you can notice, right? It is very easy, super quick. So you must be thinking how it is working. So if you click on under name, the Docker name, right? The Docker container name, you will see multiple aspects of this Docker container. The very first thing is the logs, that you can see the live logs of your Docker container, what actions, what interactions are happening with your Docker container application, right? And this section give you the additional search feature in the logs. You can copy these logs to the clipboard and you can also enable or disable the timestamp as well. And you can also clear this terminal. Second thing is the inspection, right? You can see what platform this Docker container is using. If I click on platform, we can see its platform is Linux. If I click on command, what command we are using, it's Nginx actually that we are using. If I click on state, state says it is in running state and there are multiple other attributes. If I click on image, this is my image ID that I am using and it is fetched from Nginx core or master, or you can say the official library. The port binding, we can see it's port 80 TCP, right? And the host port is 8088. The runtime, if you see, it is run C. If you see the mount, these are the storage. You can see there is no mount attached with this. If you see the volume, it is again part of the storage. There is no volume attached. If we talk about the environment, you can see some path variables. You can see which Nginx version we are using in this container. So this is the Nginx version that we are using. Labels, you can see Nginx Docker maintainers, and here's the email ID mentioned. And if I talk about network, you can see bridge network, which is the default for the Linux one that we are using. We will learn about all these things in our upcoming session. So all these things you can see easily. You can see this is very important information that everyone would like to know when the container is running, and it is coming under inspect section in the Docker desktop. If I click on bind mounts, you can see there is no volume, there is no bind mount attached with the container. If you click on executable environment, it says if you wanted to use the Docker debug, then you have to upgrade, but you can also use some basic commands. If I click on ls, so I can see all the folders and the file which is easily seeable here that I can check, right? And if I click on file section, right, under files you can see what all files and folders are exist under your container. And here on the right hand side you can see open file editor option. If you click here, right now you can see the folder we have selected that is not modifiable, but there are multiple others. Let's say the Docker entry, so this file we can see here, right? And it is giving the option in, I mean, the type of file you're opening. This is a shell file, so shell is automatically, shell CLI automatically selected, but you can see there are multiple options including YAML as well. Okay, so all these things are available, and you can also launch your interactive terminal as well, which will launched in your user profile but will be working within this Docker environment. Okay, and if I click on stats, it will give you all the details of the current container, how much CPU it is using, what is the disk read write time that it is taking, the output, the memory uses, how much it is consuming, the network input output, how it is going on, right? And it can see the data received and data sent. So all these handy information we can see quickly when we come to this stat tab, right? And you can see from where the image, the current hello world image or the welcome to Docker image we are using, from where it is coming. It is coming from here, right? If I click here, Docker, welcome to Docker, so I can see this image information which is using the latest tagging, right? In running stage, what is the overall size of this image? It is 18.55 MB. Okay, and it was created originally 1 year ago. All right, so on the left hand side we were here, right? We click on container. So if I click on image, I can see what image I was using. Multiple image here, but what we have used recently, the last one, which is Docker. Welcome to Docker, right? And you can see the local one, means which are already exist on my local machine. If I click on hub, these are the one that I have pushed previously on the Docker hub, means these images I create, and now those exist on the Docker hub. Anyone can get these images on their machine and can run it very easily. Okay. Okay, next, if you see volume, there's no volume I am using. If you go about Docker builds, so you'll see the build history, it is showing here. If I click on active builds, there is nothing active builds recently happened, right? If I click on Docker Scout, so here advanced image analysis with Docker Scout, this is the option provided by the Docker, right, that we can use. We just need to select and we can just click on analyze. Right now we are not going in deep, but we are just taking an overlook what you can easily do in the Docker desktop, right? And you can find out the plugins that you wanted to use, even it is related to log viewers or SQL container manager, and there are many more. You can easily search and apply it. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so we come here in the presentation. The container welcome to Docker is a simple web application that we have just seen. Select port 8080 colon 80 is a port column to see it running, and go to the file tabs to see what's in it, right? We have already seen, right? So Docker is a containerization platform used to develop, ship and run containers, and we have seen we were using the one Nginx image that directly fetched from the Docker hub. And the basic components of the Docker containers are the hardware, which is required, mandatory, an operating system on top of it, right? It can be optional because we can run the Docker on the bare metal server as well, okay? But this is the standard one. You have hardware, you have operating system, then we have Docker runtime, right? Docker runtime contains the Docker engine and the required component. We will go deep dive into it, and on top of it you install our application that you wanted to run, which comes in the form of image, right, that we pull it, we build it, and we run the image, right? Okay. Docker organized as an internal project initially with .cloud, a platform as a service, or you can say the PaaS company. It was first publicly released in 2013, quickly gaining popularity among developers, and Docker revolutionized software development and deployment by popularizing containerization. Docker simplified application packaging with all the dependencies and distribution with containers, which actually meaning build once and you can run it anywhere, which is the most biggest advantage with the containers. Docker doesn't use a hypervisor, and you can run Docker on your desktop or laptop if you are developing and testing the application. You must be saying, you must be thinking why we are talking about it doesn't use hypervisor, because before Docker, the VM technique was very popular, and that uses the hypervisor to launch multiple VMs, and on top of each VM, we used to run our application versions. The desktop version of Docker support Linux, Windows and macOS. So the Docker desktop that I have just shown you, that you can also run on the macOS as well or on Linux as well. Okay. Docker installed with Docker host or Docker engine, right? Actually, whenever you install Docker, so it automatically comes with Docker server, the REST API, which is used to interact, and the Docker client. So actually what happens when we will discussing the Docker architecture, we will discuss in detail, but in one liner, if I have to say, the Docker client interact with the Docker server via REST API. Okay. Next, we will discuss hypervisor in the next session. Till then, bye bye.